Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 18th of August. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. It's great to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Addressing the closing Mass of the 6th Asian Youth Day in Korea, Pope Francis urges young Catholics in Asia to help those in need with their youthfulness, goodwill and optimism. North Korea warns Seoul that it will launch preemptive attacks at any time in response to a joint military exercise between South Korea and the United States that kicked off today. Plus, police in the US town of Ferguson have used smoke bombs and tear gas to clear crowds continuing to protest over the shooting by police of an unarmed black teenager. Well, we start this morning with the latest on Pope Francis's trip to Korea. And on Sunday, the fourth day of his five-day visit, Pope Francis held the closing Mass for the Asian Youth Day at Hemi Fortress, which is in the country's southwest. There, he encouraged the young people in attendance to live a life filled with joy and purpose. Our Hwang Jie reports.
The Pope made several stops to greet children during a parade toward the altar for the Asian Youth Day closing Mass on Sunday. Thousands of people waved and cheered despite the nasty weather as the Pope gave his blessings. In the homily, he asked young Catholics to stay awake, saying that no one who sleeps can neither sing, dance, nor rejoice.
It is the duty to be vigilant, not to allow the pressures, the temptations, and the sins of ourselves or others to dull our sensibility to the beauty of holiness.
Around 45,000 people, including 6,000 young Catholics from 23 Asian countries and Asian bishops, attended the Mass at Hemi Fortress, where thousands of Korean Catholics were brutally executed in the 1800s. The Mass proceeded in many languages, including Indonesian, Japanese, and Korean. It was an unforgettable day for many of the participants.
In between, there was one part where he said, do not be afraid, be brave. And at the end, he said, Asian youth, wake up. You know, that really puts a lot of energy.
I feel blessed and honored, of course, to be part of this big event. It is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to meet the Pope and also to meet other young people in Asia.
Asian Youth Day is a gathering of young Catholics where they can explore and renew their faith. The first one was held in Thailand in 1999. The 6th Asian Youth Day that took place here in Korea was the first to be attended by the Pope. The 7th Asian Youth Day will take place in Indonesia in 2017. Hwang Jie, ARIRANG News, Seosan.
And earlier in the day, Pope Francis baptized one of the fathers of the victims of April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. The man in question was given the Christian name Francis, after the pontiff himself. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
The father of a student who was lost in April's ferry disaster was baptized by the Pope on Sunday morning. 56-year-old Lee Ho-jin, whose son died when the Sewol-ho ferry sank, had asked the Pope baptize him, and the Pope granted his wish. This is the first time in 25 years that the Pope has baptized a Korean member of the laity, since 12 Korean Catholic youth were baptized by Pope John Paul II in 1989 during his visit to Korea. The new Christian name that Lee received was Francis, after the Pope himself.
He was very happy to receive from the Pope the baptism and his name. So that for the Pope this was really a great joy, because this was not in the program of the visit to Korea to give a baptism, but this was a surprise, a occasion that was inspired by the Holy Spirit, I think.
Lee, who has been attending a Catholic church for the last 2 years, began a 38-day pilgrimage across the country after he lost his youngest child in the ferry disaster. He walked some 900 kilometers on foot carrying a cross. He met with the Pope during the Mass in Daejeon on Friday when he asked the pontiff to baptize him, and the Holy Father gladly accepted his wish. Later on during the fourth day of his visit, Pope Francis met with dozens of bishops from Asian countries. During the meeting with regional Catholic leaders in Asia, the pontiff stressed the importance of genuine dialogue based on empathy in a truly contemplative spirit of openness and receptivity to each other. He also expressed his wish to engage in further dialogue with some Asian countries with which Vatican does not yet have a full relationship. On the last day of his 5-day visit to Korea, the Pope will meet with religious leaders from other faiths, including Buddhist and Protestant, before presiding over a Peace and Reconciliation Mass at Myeongdong Cathedral in Seoul. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Yes, and that Mass at Myeongdong Cathedral is taking place as we speak, and we'll be bringing you special reports on that during our next newscast at 12 noon Korea time. Now, in the rest of the day's news, South Korea and the US began their annual military exercise dubbed Ulchi Freedom Guardian a few hours ago amid threats from North Korea. Pyongyang warned on Sunday that it was preparing preemptive strikes against the South. Seoul says any provocations will be dealt with strongly and swiftly. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
South Korea and the United States kicked off their annual military exercise on Monday. The computer simulation-aided joint Ulchi Freedom Guardian drills, which run through next Friday, mobilizes roughly 50,000 South Korean and 30,000 U.S. troops. The main purpose of the exercise is to maintain security on the Korean peninsula while upholding joint defense capabilities between the two allies. This year, the exercise will involve the testing of a new tailored strategy, which is aimed at deterring North Korea's nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction. The strategy, drawn up at a security consultative meeting last year, stipulates diplomatic and military responses at different levels of threats posed by Pyongyang during times of peace or war. Unlike years gone by, the military exercise comes amid threats from North Korea. Pyongyang on Sunday condemned the drills, warning of quote-unquote merciless preemptive strikes on Seoul at any time if it goes ahead with the drills. The North has long denounced the exercise as a rehearsal for war against Pyongyang, while Seoul insists the drills are defensive in nature. South Korea's military said the exercise will go forward as planned amid strengthened surveillance and security against the North, adding that Seoul will respond firmly and without hesitation if the North engages in any form of provocation. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
And a senior North Korean official has expressed his disapproval regarding those joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington, and also for South Korea's stance on Pyongyang's nuclear program. Kim Yang-gon, who is the head of North Korea's United Front Department of the ruling Workers' Party, reportedly made the remarks on Sunday as delegations from the two Koreas met, as you can see there, to present a wreath to mark the 5th anniversary of the passing of former South Korean President Kim Dae-jung. And this was on behalf of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Park Ji-won, who is a lawmaker from South Korea's opposition party, and he was the chief of staff to President Kim Dae-jung, said the North Korean official wanted to know why Seoul called for fresh high-level talks ahead of these joint military drills. He also reportedly said he was disappointed that President Park Geun-hye called for the North to abandon its nuclear ambitions during her speech last Friday, marking Korea's Liberation Day. Now, on this week's edition of Industry Insight, we're going to hear about some fast fashion brands. And despite tight competition, local fast fashion or SPA brands are taking on their successful foreign counterparts here in Korea as they also try to extend their reach outside of the country. Our Connie Lee has this report.
They are the so-called fast fashion brands, or SPA brands, easily seen in Seoul's busy shopping districts. Over the past couple of years in Korea, there's been a growing demand for these SPA brands, with both foreign and domestic firms flooding the streets here in Korea.
I like these kinds of brands because their prices are reasonable and they have styles that are liked by most people.
SPA, short for Specialty Retailer of Private Label Apparel, had a market worth of about 500 billion won in the Korean market back in 2008, but has since grown to about 3 trillion won, or about $2.8 billion in 2013.
The SPA brands are changing the paradigm of the fashion industry in Korea. Before, we saw brands more focused on their brand image, but now it's about the retail store's image and how to meet the exact demands of its customers.
SPA brands do it all, from design to manufacturing and retailing. Thus, the prices are lower, and new items can be produced at a faster rate.
For many of these retail stores of SPA brands, there are new products that come in almost weekly. And for this store, apparently there are new products that are delivered every day.
Currently, the 3 biggest SPA brands in Korea are not homemade. They are Japan's Uniqlo, one of the first SPA brands to enter Korea in 2005, and Spain's Zara, and Sweden's H&M. The local brands, which are latecomers to the SPA world, however, are not afraid to join in on the competition. Retail conglomerate Elan Group, which introduced Korea's first SPA brand called Sewol-ho in 2009, currently has more than 10 such brands under its belt. Their aim is global expansion, first by conquering Asia.
We found success with our first stores abroad in China and Japan, so we now plan to increase the number of our SPA brand stores in China to 50 next year. We have an edge over our foreign competitors because we design and produce according to the specific tastes of our Asian consumers.
And back in Korea, the already diluted market of SPA brands is still vied by newcomers from abroad. Canadian label Joe Fresh was recently introduced, and the UK's popular Topshop are apparently eyeing the market.
Global companies could see Korea as a test market, as Korean consumers are now recognized as trendsetters and fast adapters.
Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Now, after Korea's central bank lowered the benchmark interest rate last week for the first time in well over a year, commercial banks have decided to follow suit, and this is raising concerns. The average deposit interest rate might fall below the 2% mark. This could adversely affect the elderly, who lean very heavily on interest given by these banks. Our Son Jung-in has this report.
These days, it's considered almost impossible to save a decent amount of money from the interest given by local banks.
I'm having a hard time making ends meet because the interest rate can't catch up with inflation.
Deposit interest rates here in Korea have dropped sharply over the last 6 years. The one-year fixed deposit rate that reached 5.87% in 2008 slipped to 2.68% in June. The rate has continued tumbling over the last 2 months, with most commercial banks currently offering interest rates in the low 2% range. But experts predict they will go down even further after the Bank of Korea cut the benchmark interest rate by 1/4 percentage point to 2.25% last week. They say it might not be long before interest rates are in the 1% range, since the local economy is showing no signs of improvement, even with the easing of real estate market rules.
We'll closely monitor the effects of the rate cut and come up with appropriate measures to deal with changes to consumer behavior and household debt.
Japan already experienced a similar situation and entered an ultra-low interest rate era a long time ago. Its 1 to 3 year fixed deposit rate averaged just 0.35% at its highest. The elderly suffer the most since many of them live off the interest on their savings. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Now, for some health news now, because you are at a particular risk of dehydration during the summer, during the hot summer days. Even more so if you're relatively active and you spend quite a lot of time outdoors. Experts advise people to drink enough liquids, specifically water, to protect themselves from the ill effects of the summer heat. But how much do you need to drink? Mi-so-lang reports.
To enjoy a healthy summer, experts say it is essential to practice good hydration habits, as not drinking enough water can be quite harmful.
Paying attention to hydration during summer is going to enable you to enjoy your summer without feeling too fatigued.
Certain fruits and vegetables can fulfill your fluid requirements, but 80% of your hydration comes from the water and other beverages. So when is the right time to drink water? Many people look for water when they get thirsty, but doctors say it may be too late.
You want to outpace your thirst. You do not want to get thirsty. When you're thirsty, you're already mildly dehydrated.
Experts say it is important to keep a bottle of water within reach at all times. That way, you can access water wherever and whenever and be sure that you're keeping hydrated consistently. It is also important to know the right amount of water you need to drink per day. Dietitians advise about 9 glasses for the average woman and 12 glasses for men. So what is the best kind of drink?
Water is a perfect hydration policy. Stick with water.
Also, keep in mind that some caffeinated beverages are okay, but it is best to be wary of alcohol because it causes dehydration. Mi-so-lang, ARIRANG News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following this Monday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark.
A federal autopsy has been ordered on Michael Brown, the unarmed African-American teenager who was shot dead by police in the U.S. town of Ferguson.
That's right, Mark. Family members of Michael Brown had requested that second autopsy, and U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder cited extraordinary circumstances surrounding his death in ordering it. The small Missouri city of Ferguson has been gripped by racial tension since local police shot and killed the 18-year-old some 9 days ago. A midnight to 5 a.m. curfew installed by the state governor, who had also declared a state of emergency hours earlier, did not hold early Sunday. Police fired smoke bombs and tear gas at a group of some 150 protesters who rallied against what they perceived as racially motivated police violence. 7 people were arrested, and at least 1 person is reported to be in critical condition due to a gun wound reportedly not by police this time. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon blamed local police for Sunday's renewed violence, saying its release of CCTV footage implicating Michael Brown in an act of petty theft minutes prior to the shooting had an incendiary effect. An Ebola quarantine center in Liberia was attacked by protesters, freeing at least 20 patients who were under observation for the contagious virus. It happened in the capital of Monrovia, in a densely populated township described as a slum on Saturday evening local time. Reports say protesters called Ebola a hoax, though it is not confirmed yet that the virus was at the center. Officials are concerned that blood-stained bedding looted from the center could serve as a serious infection risk. An estimated 50,000 people reside in that West Point neighborhood. And turning now to events in Iraq, Kurdish Peshmerga fighters are engaged in a fierce battle with Islamic State insurgents to reclaim Iraq's largest dam in Mosul. A Kurdish official said most of the surrounding area had been seized as Peshmerga fighters pushed for control of that Mosul dam. Reuters reports residents in the region were told to leave by Islamic State militants who planted bombs alongside roads leading in and out of the facility. Peshmerga forces were clearing those booby traps as U.S. airstrikes hit IS checkpoints and vehicles in the area. The militants had seized Mosul Dam some 10 days ago, triggering concerns that they could use the major source of water and power to flood regions downstream. Kurdish forces are also making ground in other northern regions. They retook 2 majority Christian towns 30 kilometers from Mosul. And another Ukrainian fighter jet has been shot down by pro-Russian separatists, this time over the region of Luhansk. A Ukrainian military spokesman said the pilot ejected out of the plane and was taken to a secure place. This as a Russian convoy of humanitarian goods arrived at a border checkpoint near Donetsk. Kiev has inspected the first group of trucks and agreed to let them proceed with the guidance of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Meanwhile, foreign ministers of Ukraine and Russia, together with their German and French counterparts, were set to meet in Berlin Sunday local time to find an end to the crisis.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with some updates on the current search for the South Korean national football team head coach. And looks like after all signs were pointing to the KFA signing Bert Van Marwijk, talks broke down and they're still without a head coach. Now, 2 weeks after Lee Young-soo, the head of the technical committee, spoke with Van Marwijk, the Dutch coach decided to decline the job offer with two sides unable to agree on the contract numbers. Now, reports also say that Van Marwijk wanted to work close to Europe because of his family, and that didn't go too well with the KFA neither. Meanwhile, with the September A matches coming up soon, the KFA might opt to go with an interim head coach before choosing their next permanent head coach. And now shifting gears to the Volleyball World Grand Prix 2014 as the South Korean women's national volleyball team faced off against Serbia for the second time in this tournament. And while Korea failed to beat the Serbian side in their first clash, the second time's a different story as Kim Young-kyung puts up 30 points in this game, helping Korea win 3-1. But despite all that, their two losses against China and Japan over the weekend were costly as they finished the tournament at 4 wins and 5 losses and fails to advance to the knockout stages. And now moving over to some Sunday night's K-League Classic action, Gyeongnam FC defeated Sangju 3-1 with Busan I-Park holding on to beat the Seongnam FC in a high-scoring match 4-2. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Jeonnam Dragons take on the Samsung Blue Wings. Now, despite Suwon playing a very aggressive match in the first half, both sides go into the second half of the match scoreless. But the second half is Jeonnam's An Young-woo scores the first goal of the match, giving Jeonnam the 1-0 lead in the 61st minute, before former Blue Wings Stevo makes it 2-0 Jeonnam in the 71st minute. Now, Suwon does get on the score sheet thanks to Santos in the 77th minute, but An Young-woo scores the second goal of the night in the 88th minute as Jeonnam cruises past Suwon 3-1. And now finishing things off with Sunday night's KBO action, we had 2 games get rained down, but the Tusan Bears swept the weekend series against the Lotte Giants with a 7-4 victory for the team's 2,000th win. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the NC Dinos take on the Hanwha Eagles. Of course, going into game here, second inning, bases loaded for Kim Jong-ho. That's a 2-run single, and the NC Dinos take an early 2-0 lead. Stays that way until the 8th inning of the game. Kim Tae-won RBI single to right center, and Hanwha cuts the deficit to 2-1. But next batter, Che Jin-heng deep to right center, and gone. The Hanwha Eagles take the lead 3-2. But in the bottom of the inning with man on, Eric Thames to the rescue. A 2-run shot to deep center, 130 meters, as he helps the NC Dinos come back to win this one. 4-3, your final score. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Nationwide autumn monsoon rain is forecast to continue today. It's dropping light drizzle to heavy downpours in the entire nation. So the upper parts of the peninsula will see on and off light drizzle, while southern areas could see up to 120 millimeters during the day. So a heavy rain advisory was issued in the southern parts of the areas, and even a heavy rain warning is in place for parts of Jeollado and Gyeongsangdo province and Busan as well. So it seems like nationwide rain will continue throughout the day, dropping temperatures at about 25 degrees Celsius, which is about a couple of degrees lower than yesterday. So let's take a closer look at those temperatures. The afternoon high in the capital, Daegu and Gwangju, will all rise to 25, while Busan should see highs of 24 this afternoon. And for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island should be the warmest place to be at 28. Daejeon will top out at 24, and Dokdo should see highs of 22, while Mount Keungang reaches at 16. Well, that's all for me at this hour, and let's send it back to Mark in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for the weather there. And that's all we have for now. Thank you ever so much for watching the program. We'll be back again at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.